Hey y'all, we have launched our very own merch on the Letters 2 Media merch store. We have a bunch of good looking t-shirts and hoodies. If you want your own Haddonfield Horror merch, click on the link in the description.
Welcome back to the Haddonfield Horrors podcast, where we review horror movies and horror franchises. I'm Mark,
I'm Tawan.
and today we're reviewing Terrifier 2, released in 2002, written and directed by Damien Leone. Tawan, can you give the people the plot summary?
Sure. Resurrected by a sinister entity, Art the Clown returns to Miles County to terrorize a teenage girl and her younger brother on Halloween night.
Terrifier 2, my main gripe with the first movie was that it had no plot, all kill and just gore for gore's sake, and I went into this movie knowing that there was some kind of a plot, but now I regret saying that this movie needed a plot because this plot was like it was a plot in theory, not in execution.
Yeah.
And like the whole mystical thing was out of the blue. Out of the blue completely.
And it just wasn't. and, like, and I hate to be the one to always say, like, it's not explained because, everything doesn't need to be explained all the time. And, like, every movie, like, some movies they just happen like that. And some movies I like that have done things like that. But, um, especially coming off the first one with the lack of information given. If you're given even less information this time around, like I guess this is whatever we see on the screen in these movies, we just have to accept that this is what's in the universe.
I liked Art the Clown in the first movie because he was pretty much just some sadistic killer. But now there's like some mystical devil entity demonic thing that's like keeping him alive. Like what the fuck was that about? Like, and don't get me started on that mid credit scene. Like what the fuck was that? She gave birth to his head.
There
It
was a mid credit scene
You didn't see the mid credit scene?
because I immediately just turned the movie off.
You they well, there's a mid credit scene where Vicky from the first movie gives birth to Art's head.
Interesting.
Like just his head.
Okay.
Like you have to watch it because it's confusing because the movie ends with the pale clown girl with
Hmm.
Art's head, but
Yeah.
then Vicky is giving birth to Art's head, which is like,
Yeah. Okay.
what are your thoughts on this movie?
So it's definitely more brutal than the first one. Like, definitely won't deny any of that like type of discourse around it. Like, it was definitely more brutal. Now, I could see how it'd be uneasy, but I don't know about the whole like passing out type stuff. Like, I don't know about all that. You know, movies just market themselves that way anyway to try to get like hype up. But I don't know about like passing out watching this movie.
Passing out, no. Like uncomfortable and like grossed out, yes.
Yeah, but I will say I like it more than the first one, even though the characters were still kind of mid. Like they just weren't really giving much. Even though we did have like a main girl this time around, like I guess she was the best out of them, and then we just had everyone else who was just kind of there, and they still can't really act that good. And
Like of this plot, I needed more about like the dad's back. Like why was the dad suddenly having like dreams and visions of art and like his daughter finding art? Like were they trying to say that his brain tumor gave him these mystical visions?
I also would have liked to know like who found out about art because from what well okay, not gonna say that because Vicky was like that main character in the beginning of the movie, the last movie, telling like the story of art. But I don't, unless people put out the visuals of like the pictures taken at like the crime scenes, how would they have known what all that shit looked like? Like, especially like you mentioned, like her dad's drawings and stuff. Like, how would he have known like what the deaths looked like?
Like he definitely had some type of mystical powers, but like again, all of that mystical stuff was just like thrown in when it wasn't a thing. And he was just some crazy clown in the first movie. Now there's like some mystical element, and she has a destiny with some magical sword that was just like, what the hell?
And now we have a little girl following art around.
Disturbing, very disturbing. I don't know. This whole movie is just like, honestly, the kills were just gross and made me uncomfortable, and this movie itself was boring. Like, I guess if I was one of those gore hounds, I would enjoy it, but like, yeah, I watch horror movies for the kills and the jump scares, but I also like to have like somewhat of a decent story being told. Like, as
Mm,
bad as like the worst Nightmare on Elm Street or Jason or Halloween movie gets, it's like there is still kind of an interesting story underneath that you kind of enjoy watching, or you can just like complain about. But at least there's something to talk about other than the kills.
yeah, that's true.
All this movie has is the kills, and it's just like they're not even like enjoyable kills. They're just like graphic for graphic's sake. They're purely there for shock value.
Mm,
Like Saw has those shock value kills, but it's like those intricate, unique, crazy traps that have you thinking like, how the fuck did he rig this trap up? How did he put them in this trap without them waking up? Like it's like there's so many things. It's like, oh, why was this person even put into this trap? So it's just like, yeah, it has gore, but it's like story behind the gore.
yeah,
But
definitely right.
were there any scenes that stood out for you,
I mean,
good or bad?
you can't. I you can't talk about this movie without talking about the scene of Allie getting killed.
Yeah,
Like that was some crazy shit. Like that was some crazy shit right there. Like I had seen that like prior to like the rewatch, like just because when it was first coming out, because everybody was talking about like how crazy this movie was. But when I saw that in full for the first time, that was a crazy thing to see right there. Like Art was fucking her up, like
that's the first scene I
crazy.
saw when I was like looking for like an Instagram promotional video. That's the fucking clip that kept popping up, and I was like, okay, this is what I'm in store for.
Like that is actually insane. Like the slicing on her face, just stabbing, ripping her back off, and then you
With the
got Art.
bleach and the salt,
That's what I was about to say. I was about to say. Then you got Art with like the clown tendencies and pulling out bleach and salt and just laughing as he
like
pours it on her.
literally rubbing salt on the wound, like literally, fucking insane.
Like that was so crazy. Um, Let me think. Another scene that I did like, just because I thought like maybe Art wasn't gonna kill someone was like when he was at the laundromat and he decided to clean up the blood off the floor that he put on there from doing his clothes, and then you see that he killed the owner. At first, I thought he was just
Hmm.
gonna leave him because he decided to clean up. I was like, oh, he's being nice, and then I was like, oh, never mind, he still killed him.
Yeah, but again, just I was thinking like you can't talk about like you have to talk about the scenes and the kills together because they aren't separate like with other movies. Like every
Yeah,
scene leads up to a kill, and then the scenes that don't lead up to a kill are just boring as hell. Like nothing interesting. But like one of the scenes that stood out for me because I didn't. It was overly graphic. Like when he shot the mom through the car and blew her head off. I was like, what?
yes.
What the fuck kind of gun was that? Like what the hell? My favorite scene, the only scene I liked because it made me so uncomfortable, but like I was like, damn, I actually like what he did because it reminded me of like some shit that Michael Myers would do when he like used Allie's mom's head as the candy bowl to pass out the candy for the kids. I was like, oh, I kind of like this, and you can see the kids are like visibly uncomfortable, like they weren't sure what was happening, but they took the candy anyway. And I was
They
like,
gonna
okay.
always take that candy.
And then a scene that stood out for me in a bad way was the mid credit scene. Like, why the hell is Vicky here popping out Art's head? And it's like how I'm like, yeah, she was fucked up and she was killed, but like she's also writing Victoria plus Art on the wall. Like, yeah, he tortured you and mutilated you, but he still murdered your sister. Why do you have some like romantic obsession with him? Like, what the fuck is happening?
Oh, the the one with the fucking when he killed. Trying to think. I think it was Brooke's boyfriend.
Jeff.
Yes.
That's where they officially lost me. Like I saw it coming based off his shirt and based off him.
Mm,
Like I'm like he's gonna take a piss, and they're focusing way too much on this piss, and the piss is taking way too long. It's like they're gonna cut off his dick, and then he just went. He did
got
too
stabbed
much.
straight in it.
hmm And then when he killed the fucking the costume shop guy, I was like, what? You could see, but the guy was still visibly alive. I was like, this is a lot. But I kind of braced myself for what the movie was gonna do, how it was gonna be even more graphic. Like when he killed the fucking the doctor, the medical examiner,
Hmm.
when he split that guy's head open, I was like, oh, it's gonna be this kind
Insane.
of movie.
Like insane, actually. Like
I was
I
like,
like I can say a lot about this movie, but the effects are fucking crazy.
the practical effects are amazing, and I prefer practical effects in horror movies versus CGI. You
Definitely.
always you lose something with CGI. Like the practical effects is just like it looks more realistic too, which makes you even more uncomfortable.
Very much that, and especially like that's why the alley kill was so like crazy, just because of how real that looked. Like I didn't watch any yet, but I definitely need to see like some behind the scenes on how that looked.
And then like that scene with Allie when her mom walks in and
Yes,
she regains consciousness for like that last time and looks up and she's like, "Mom," I'm just like, "Oh my god." That's the one time it got me that I was like, "Oh god." Oh, it's so sad. But then immediately it like she just started screaming. I was like, "Okay, now you lost me again. Goodbye." Um well, let's talk about the characters that they gave us. Let's talk about the little pale girl. Like, I'm still not quite sure what her purpose was. Like, was she just there to be like his sidekick, but also his savior in the end? Like, what was up with her?
yeah, I wasn't. hmm, I wasn't fully sure either when watching it. Like I thought maybe it was like Art's child or something, or
A deranged young fan.
that too. But then we see like only Art could really was the only one that could really see her. but then we see other people can also see her. So it's like, who can actually see her?
Yeah, and it's like he wasn't expecting her, but also like how did she know he was gonna be at that like laundromat? Like it's so many unanswered questions with that character.
Yeah, because I could see if it was like a mental entity that only Art could see. Like, obviously, that makes the most sense. But then, because I remember when they were playing like patty
Patty
cake,
cake.
and then she wasn't there. But when you switch to Art's view, she's there. But then at the end, like the rest of them could see her. It's like what?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, it just didn't keep up with the continuity. Or maybe it's something special that each person has to have this year. Like, I don't know. It's not explained, so I can't like just say that.
Yeah. The next character I was going to talk about is Vicky, but you didn't watch the mid credit scene, so you didn't see the descent of like Vicky's madness. Like she's in an asylum. She's pregnant. She's giving birth, but she's using her blood to like write Vicky plus art on the wall, and then she gives birth to his baby, and she's holding the art head and having some like maniacal laugh, and it's just like, did he also like we saw him physically torture her, but
Yeah,
like did he mentally torture her, or was it just like
I
because of
guess
her
it's just a
physical?
product of it.
Yeah, that and her physical appearance, she probably just like snapped, but now she's in love with the person who mutilated her and also murdered her sister and her sister's friend, and
And she also killed someone too. Remember?
she did kill that toxic host, which is probably why she's like in an insane asylum. But let's move on from Vicky and let's talk about Jonathan, the main character's brother.
Yeah, that little dude was weird. Like, I'm sorry, like, um, him being like a fan of art, kinda. I don't know. That was a little weird for me. But also, you just being a little shit to his mom.
He deserved that slap, and I usually don't. I'm usually not pro that, but like he was being the ass.
He really was. Like, honestly, I would have thought that he did all that shit to the car too.
Yeah, I'm like she got it wrong, but like, do you blame her? Like you've been like a little asshole this entire time, so I would have expected you to do this.
Actually.
Well, enough about him. Let's talk about his sister. What did you think about Sienna,
You
our
know,
final girl?
I didn't really mind Sienna. Like I will say there isn't much to say about her because for her to be our final girl, we get kind of like the least time with her. She, like even I would say probably out of every other character, we probably have like the most like amount of minutes on screen with her. But I feel like we have less time with her. Besides like the beginning, so it's like the beginning with her and her brother looking into her dad's journal, her dream sequence, the store where she bought her new angel wings. She was at the party, and then the Terrifier haunted mansion. Those are like about 5 or 6 scenes that she's in,
Yep.
and that's all
And
we get of
most
her.
and the most of that haunted mansion stuff is just like it's going back and forth between her and Brooke.
Yeah, and that's all. That's really kind of all we're getting with her, and
Those weird dreams she was having, and it's like, can this be explained? Because like you're shoehorning in this whole like mystical magical stuff, and she's like destined to fight art, but it's out of the blue. Like
mhm.
I get if it was like a surviving character that we already saw, but it's like, come on, this is someone completely new. We didn't see her last movie.
Yeah, and I know like the director or the creator Damien Leone, he was like saying that he was trying to like make it more character driven, and it's like I feel like you just added more characters and just killed them all off and didn't really do much with your supposed main character.
Very true. Yep, that's that's actually pretty accurate. But let's talk about art. What would you think about art this time around?
Um, art this time around was more or less the same. I will say, even though he was still like brutal as hell, I felt like he gave me more funny-ish moments in the first one, kind of. Now, I will say the performance was still good from David Howard Thornton. Like his performance was still good. Like him going to the laundromat and just washing his clothes because they were bloody. Like that was just funny to me. Just like the little stuff that Art does in between, and I liked it. But I don't know. I feel like he has some of those like funnier moments in the first one. Like, but they still do exist here. They just felt a little more brutal, and especially in the way that the kills were as well. Like,
Mm-hmm.
even though he split a woman fully in half the last movie, he took the time out to take a selfie with her. Like, I don't know, like just little stuff like that was kind of missing a bit for me. But besides that, like, I still like the character of Art, and even though we we got something with like the pale girl who I guess is supposed to like represent him, and then like Art kind of being like this entity that some people know about. It was like interesting, but it still really just wasn't enough. Like at this point, um, I would just forego the whole learning about Art and just just let him kill people. Because I don't think we're really getting much, and especially they're planning like a third and fourth movie most likely from what I had read previously. Um, I don't see much being built up. Now, if it does, I'll eat crow and then admit it if I've initially seen the movie. Um, but as of now, it's just not. It's not giving.
Yeah, because at some point, like, yeah, you can keep upping the gore and upping the kills, but like without an interesting story, that's gonna get stale and boring quick. So I don't know. It's I don't know. It feels like it's already getting old fast. I'm just like, how long can you? Like, if this movie came out in the early 2000s when torture porn was like at its peak of popularity, this would have
Yeah.
a place. But I think we're in the requel slash elevator horror slash let's get back to basics of horror like phase of it all. So
Mhm.
like this is like product of like a bygone era, and they're not even doing it right because even torture porn still had a decent story. Like Hostel was porn and torture porn, but they still had some shit going on in the background. Like, and I don't know, I don't know. It's just give them the behind the scenes info and facts, Tuan.
Alrighty. So the budget of Terrifier 2 was 250,000, and they pulled in a box office of 14.7 million. A little bit of interesting info. The film had its world premiere at Fright Fest on August 29th, 2022, and was theatrically released in the United States on October 6th, 2022. The little pale girl's look was inspired by Art the Clown cosplayers. Victoria's portion of the mid-credit sequence had to be reshot due to its unforeseen similarities to James Wan *Malignant*. In the original version, Victoria's not pregnant. She's in the room singing the song and scratching the back of her head, and she notices there's blood all over her fingers. The nurse hears her screaming and runs to the room to find her writhing on the floor, holding her head. For its release, there were several reports of viewers vomiting and fainting during their screenings of Terrifier 2, with one instance allegedly having emergency services being called. Terrifier 3 is currently planned, along with further installments that will slowly build on Art's background and motives. Some critics' reactions. Currently, the film sits at a 86% on Rotten Tomatoes. Common Sense Media described the characters as memorable, particularly Sienna, due to her character development. Anderson states that human life starts to matter more here than it did in the first one. The Guardian rated the film a total of 3 stars out of 5, praising the film's creative kills and performances, while giving some criticisms toward its runtime. IGN, while stating the film has underdeveloped subplot and themes, um, and Variety commended the film for effectively capturing the look and feel of the 1970s and 1980s slasher films, as well as the soundtrack and special effects, but was critical of the relentless brutality and unsympathetic characters.
But enough about them. What about us? Do we cash or pass Terrifier 2? Tuan?
Uh, I don't know, because there are definitely some things I like. Mainly, it's the practicality of the effects. But I think I probably would pass on Terrifier 2 because I really don't see myself going back to watch this again. I can only see myself going back to probably put this on to like shock some friends of mine who had never seen it. And that would probably be it, but not for like my enjoyment because I don't know if I really enjoyed the movie like that, but I can commend its effects and stuff, but would pass on watching it again.
I also pass it. Like you said, it's not a movie that lends itself for rewatches. It's not something that's like, if you're not a gore hound, you won't enjoy it. Like, yeah, we horror fans, we love the kills, but we love like a story to go with the kills. Like, if I just wanted to watch all the kills, then it's like, what's to just have a clip show of murders and then just call it a day. Like, but it's a movie. Like, give me something to like root for. Even the best like anthology movies like VHS and Trick or Treats, like there's still some stories within those anthologies that gives us great kills, and this gives us nothing. And honestly, I'm not interested in more Art the Clown if they're not gonna like flesh him out or flesh the story out. Like, so it's a pass for me. But with next week being Valentine's Day, we're going to be diving into a Valentine's Day themed movie that is appropriately called Valentine. We're going to be watching Cupid kill a bunch of people with his arrows, which hopefully is enjoyable. So, tune in next week to hear that. Thank you for joining me, Tuan, and good night and goodbye. The Haddonfield Horrors Podcast is a Letters to Media production.
Should we do an intro?